look at your arm right now. You are an exceptionally weird mammal. We are the only primates wandering around looking like a plucked chicken. Yet we spend billions of dollars every year scraping, ripping, and burning off the tiny amount of hair we actually have left. Why did we lose our thick fur coats in the first place? And exactly when did our ancestors decide they needed a shave? I am going to explain exactly how we became the naked ape and how a microscopic bug gave us the timeline. By the end of this, you will understand why your morning shaving routine is a bizarre mix of ancient survival and clever marketing. The answer involves running animals to death, ancient Egyptian obsessions, and a specific type of lice. Let us go back a little over 1 million years ago. Our ancestors were fully covered in thick fur. Fur is genuinely great. It keeps you warm during freezing nights. It protects your delicate skin from the harsh sun. It acts like a natural suit of armor against sharp branches. Almost every other mammal on Earth decided to keep their fur. It makes perfect biological sense. We threw ours away entirely. Why would we do something so risky? The answer is incredibly simple. Sweat. Early humans living in Africa figured out a terrifying new hunting strategy. It is called persistence hunting. We were definitely not the fastest animals on the savannah. A cheetah could outrun us in a few seconds. But we developed a secret weapon. We could sweat better than anything else alive. Other animals have to pant to cool down. They can only sprint for short bursts before their internal temperature spikes. If they do not stop to rest, their brains will literally overheat. We evolved millions of tiny, watery sweat glands all over our entire bodies. But there was a biological catch. Sweat does not work very well if it gets trapped under a heavy coat of fur. The air needs to hit the moisture in your skin to cool you down. So evolution made a dramatic trade. We traded our warm fur coats for the ultimate liquid cooling system. We essentially became the Terminators of the animal kingdom. We would simply jog after a fast animal in the blazing midday sun. The animal would sprint away in a panic. It would get exhausted very quickly. It would have to stop and pant under a tree. We would just keep jogging towards it. We never stopped. We sweated, we cooled down on the move, and we kept walking forward. Eventually, the animal would just collapse from pure heat stroke. Our hairless, sweaty bodies made us the absolute greatest endurance runners on the entire planet. But how do we know exactly when this major hair loss happened? Hair does not fossilize well in the dirt. We cannot just dig up a bald caveman and check the date. This is where the scientific story gets a little gross. The definitive answer comes from lice. Scientists realized something fascinating about humans. We have two very distinct types of lice. We have head lice and we have pubic lice. Do not worry, this is strictly scientific. Millions of years ago, when we were covered in thick fur, we only had one single type of louse roaming our entire hairy bodies. It was one big happy lice family. But as we slowly lost our body hair, a vast hairless desert formed between our head and our lower half. The lice population got split into two completely isolated groups. They were separated by a massive expanse of smooth, naked skin. Over time, these two separated groups evolved into completely different species. But the story gets even weirder. Our pubic lice are actually genetically related to gorilla lice. Sometime around 3 million years ago, our early ancestors must have been sleeping in old gorilla nests. Or maybe they were hunting gorillas. Either way, a rogue gorilla louse hopped over to an early human. Because we were already starting to lose our body hair, that displaced louse settled in the only thick forest it could find. By tracking the genetic mutations of these tiny separated bugs, scientists pinpointed exactly when we lost our fur coat. So evolution shaved us first. But it intentionally left thick hair on our heads. That hair protects our brains from the pounding hot sun. It left hair in other specific places to reduce walking friction and trap chemical pheromones. For hundreds of thousands of years, that was perfectly fine. We were naturally bald monkeys living our absolute best lives in the warm climate. Then the global ice age hit, the temperature plummeted, it got very cold very fast. We suddenly realized we desperately needed fur again. We started hunting animals and wearing their heavy skins. This created a brand new and deadly problem. Bugs. Imagine living in a dark cave during winter, wrapped tightly in thick animal furs. You do not have antibacterial soap or a modern washing machine. Those dirty furs quickly become an absolute paradise for fleas, ticks, and blood-sucking mites. If you get a severe parasite infestation in the Stone Age without medicine, you simply die. Hair removal suddenly shifted from a slow evolutionary trait to a highly conscious survival choice. Archaeologists suspect that early humans started manually removing their remaining body hair to starve out these deadly parasites. They obviously did not have fancy ergonomic razors. They used whatever they could find in the dirt. They would find two sturdy seashells and use them exactly like giant tweezers to violently pluck hairs out by the root. They would strike pieces of hard flint together to create razor-sharp glass edges. They carefully used these stone blades to scrape hair off their faces and bodies. It was incredibly bloody. It was highly dangerous and prone to infection. But it was far better than dying from a diseased tick bite. But basic survival only explains the rough Stone Age shaving techniques. When did we actually start caring about being smooth for beauty? For that specific answer, we fast forward in time to ancient Egypt. The ancient Egyptians took hair removal to an entirely obsessive new level. Around 3,000 years before the modern era, they looked at natural body hair and decided it was completely disgusting. To Egyptian society, visible body hair equaled poverty and disease. If you had hair, you were considered a dirty peasant. The wealthy elite classes wanted to be entirely hairless from head to toe. They invented the world's first metal razors out of pure copper and bronze. But shaving your entire body with a dull copper blade is extremely tedious, so they got highly creative. They invented the earliest form of sugar waxing. They boiled down a sticky paste made of pure sugar, lemon juice, and water. They smeared it over their skin, let it cool down, and ripped it off. Egyptian priests were strictly required to pluck every single hair from their bodies before entering a sacred temple. They firmly believed the gods demanded absolute physical purity. They would even shave their heads bald and wear extravagant, heavy wigs instead. Wigs were infinitely better because you could simply take them off at night and easily check them for lice. A perfectly smooth body was the ultimate flex of extreme wealth and high hygiene in the ancient world. This massive cultural obsession eventually spread to the Roman Empire. The Romans absolutely loved taking Egyptian ideas and making them their own. In Roman society, a complete lack of body hair was the ultimate social status symbol. If you walked into a fancy public bathhouse looking like a hairy grizzly bear, people assumed you were completely uneducated. Julius Caesar himself was famous for demanding his facial hairs be plucked out individually with metal tweezers. The rich Romans even had a specific household slave whose only daily job was painful hair removal. They used rough pumice stones to literally rub the hair directly off their skin. Just imagine using a rough volcanic rock as a shower loofah until your arm hair simply gives up and falls out. That agonizing process was considered the absolute height of luxury. Then the mighty Roman Empire collapsed. The Dark Ages rolled in over Europe. Suddenly, nobody cared about fancy copper razors or pumice stones. Regular people were far too busy surviving deadly plagues and brutal feudal wars. Body hair made a huge triumphant comeback. For several centuries, European men grew massive, rugged beards, and women happily let their body hair grow completely naturally. So why do millions of people today consider armpit and leg hair to be an absolute deal breaker? How do we transition from survival fur to smooth skin being a strict daily requirement? The actual answer is pure marketing capitalism. In the early 1900s, King Camp Gillette invented the disposable safety razor. He successfully sold millions to men, but Gillette eventually hit a massive business problem. Half the population, being women, had no use for his products. Women wore long dresses. Nobody ever saw their legs. There was zero social pressure to remove invisible body hair. The advertising industry completely invented a fake problem. When sleeveless dresses became trendy, magazines ran aggressive advertisements aimed at female insecurities. They invented the bizarre idea that natural underarm hair was highly unhygienic. They called it an embarrassing personal problem. Within a single decade, underarm hair became an unforgivable social taboo. Then World War II caused a massive nylon shortage. Women had to go bare-legged. Razor companies launched a second marketing wave, loudly claiming natural leg hair was horribly offensive. They created a massive social panic out of thin air. We are naked apes who convinced ourselves we needed to be even more naked. We started sweating our thick fur off just to hunt fast antelopes in the hot sun. We somehow ended up buying expensive monthly subscriptions for multi-blade razors. Our modern grooming habits are completely ridiculous. We happily alter our biology purely to fit into whatever society tells us is acceptable this specific decade. So the next time you are standing in the shower dreading the chore of shaving your legs or trimming your beard, ask yourself a simple question. Are you doing this for yourself? Or are you just following the ghostly orders of an ancient Egyptian priest and a greedy vintage ad executive? If you want to keep exploring the weird and wonderful history of our naked ape bodies, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss another weird evolutionary deep dive.